لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, there's a narration collected by Imam al-Hafiz Abu Dawud al-Sijistani rahimahullah ta'ala in his Sunan. Abu Dawud al-Sijistani is one of the authors of the 6 mother or original books of hadith. These books of hadith, they gather the large majority of the narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is why these 6 books are referred to as al-ummat al-sitta. These 6 books are referred to as the 6 main references, meaning references of hadith. There's many other books. There are many other books. However, these 6 books gather the majority of the narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Abu Dawud al-Sijistani, he is the student, the direct student of Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah. As a matter of fact, 4 out of the 6 are all students of Imam al-Bukhari. Abu Dawud, al-Tirmidhi, al-Imam Muslim, al-Nasa'i. All of them were students of al-Bukhari, meaning that those books would have not existed had it not been for Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah. Now in this book, Sunan Abi Dawud, he collects a narration that is on the authority of Abi Musa al-Ash'ari, whom we have spoken about extensively in previous gatherings. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna min ijlalillahi ta'ala إكرام ذي الشيبة المسلم وحامل القرآن غير الغال فيه ولا الجاف عنه والإمام المقسط وفي لفظ وإكرام الإمام أو ذي السلطان المقسط." He says sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it is of the exaltation of Allah that an individual exalt or honor an elderly Muslim and one who bears the Quran, who is neither extreme in its teachings nor divorced of them, and to honor the just and fair leader. Now, if we look at this narration on the surface level, we have 3 types of people here. We have first, the elderly Muslim. Second, we have the one who memorized the Quran, is committed it to memory, and implements it. Doesn't mean that they implement every single last letter. That is beyond the capabilities of a human being, of an average human being. But they try. Number 3 is honoring a leader who is just and fair. Honoring a leader who is just and fair. Now, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us here that we are to honor these people, it's of the exaltation of Allah. Why? Because these individuals, they personify the 3 main aspects that the prophets and messengers were sent for. What were the prophets and messengers sent to teach us? They were sent to teach us, number 1, the worship, the implementation. Number 2, the words and revelations of Allah. Number 3, the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what makes the human being a khalifa, a successor on earth. Meaning that these three types of individuals, they personify aspects of the reason why the prophets and messengers were sent. Now, some people have two of these three traits. Some people have three of these traits. The khulafa, for instance, the four khulafa, they had all of these traits. But when we look at the first person, an elderly Muslim, you are exalting this person because this individual has lived and has practiced Islam not as a fleeting phase, if you will. This person has committed himself or herself to a discipline and has gone through life holding to that discipline. And the elderly amongst us, they understand what is meant by holding to that discipline. It sounds a lot easier than it is, but a person's faith is tested all the way to its root. When a person, it's very easy to be to be joyful and jovial when things are going your way and things are going easily. What's not so easy is when tragedy knocks on your door. The real colors, the true colors of a person come out under that kind of stress and that kind of strain, that kind of heat, that kind of friction is introduced to a person's life. Whatever comes out during those instances, during those times, that's a person's true color. But being nice and jovial and joking and laughing and telling everybody what they want to hear when life is going good, everybody does that. The secretary does that. The cashier at Walmart does that. That's not particularly impressive. What's impressive is a person who's been able to traverse life for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, go through the change that society goes through the changes that he goes through the sadnesses that he goes through, and is able to come out on the other side saying, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. That's impressive. And that is in itself a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth. And exalting a person who is like this is of the exaltation of Allah. Likewise, one who is memorized the Quran, the book of Allah. A lot of people who are not used to memorizing the Quran or have only memorized small portions of it, those small portions that you memorized of the Quran in times in your life when you didn't really have anything else going on, this was something that you did and you were able to memorize them, or you heard someone recite those particular verses really nice, so you decided you wanted to commit them to memory, right? Or they say something that really struck you. Those little verses or those chapters of the Quran, most people assume that memorizing the Quran is as clear-cut as those few verses or those few chapters that the general masses memorize. And that's not at all how it works. Memorizing the Quran is actually a very, very difficult task. And to keep it memorized, to be able to recite it at any time, to be able to keep it memorized and keep it distinguished and keep it sorted out in your mind, that is impressive. That is somebody who has dedicated thousands of hours of his or her life while everyone else was out doing whatever. This person was huddled up for thousands of hours learning and memorizing the book of Allah, learning to recite them. But that's not all. Not just a person who recites the Quran, but the Prophet ﷺ adds, who is neither extreme in its teachings nor divorced of those teachings. Person who is implementing of the Quran without extremism and without lackadaisicalness. This is a person to exalt, because honestly, that as well is a miracle of Allah on the earth. The third and final that the Prophet ﷺ mentions is this Sultan al-Muqsit, a person who is in a position of authority who is fair and unbiased. Who is fair and unbiased, someone who is just, but he's in a position of authority. I want to ask a general question here. I want you to think about this with me. Why does every human being fantasize about being in authority? Why? Authority. I want to be the boss. I want to be the guy that what I say goes. Why? Why is that a fantasy of human beings? Humanity in general. It's such a plague and such a problem that the Prophet ﷺ would not ever give that position to a person who sought it. A person who seeks that position automatically has disqualified himself from that position. Why is this authority so seductive to the human being? Why is money so seductive to the human being? It's the same reason. The same reason as power. What is real power? It's not your muscles. It's not your intellect. Real power on earth is controlling other people. That's power. That's what everybody lusts over. If I have enough money, I can get people to do anything I tell them, anything I want. I can get them, I can buy anything. Matter of fact, if I have enough money, I can invent things. I can get anything. I can buy experience, right? So the desire for wealth translates to the desire for authority, for power. Why do human beings want to be in power? The answer? Because they want to be able to do whatever they want. This concept of freedom, that's what makes power so seductive. So when a person is in a position of authority and they're still fair, this is a person who has trained himself to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're in authority. What they say goes. And most of humanity will not stand up to authority. That's just the bottom line. And so a person who manages to be in a position of authority but still is fair and unbiased and is undiluted, has not allowed himself to become deluded by the position of authority and that illusion of freedom, this is an indication of true faith and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a miracle of Allah on this earth. And so it is of the exaltation of Allah that a person honors and exalts the elderly Muslim, the one who carries the Quran, who is neither extreme in its teachings nor divorced of them, and to honor an authoritative leader, a person who is in authority, who is fair and unbiased. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He teach us what will benefit us and to benefit us from what He teaches us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He protect our minds and our hearts from unnecessary knowledge and knowledge that will not be of consequence to us in this life or the hereafter. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cleanse our hearts and our minds from all of the rubbish and all of the pollution that is in our hearts and minds, and make our hearts fit to carry His message and His revelation. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina.